Hello, my name is Tomasz Pożytek, and in this video I will be talking about ALM in Power Platform. Now, ALM stands for Application Lifecycle Management, and obviously it's much more than just moving your solutions between environments. It is also about the documentation, about the maintenance, about the commissioning, retirement of the applications. Nevertheless, what is the most important part, at least in my opinion, in Power Platform is actually this moving solutions between environments. And now you can have multiple environments. You can have your development environment, then you can have test environment, staging, and finally production. And now, if you're watching this video, I believe that you're one of those developers who knows the principles of ALM, so that once your solution leaves the development environment, so once it is moved to test or dev, or staging or prod, then you should do no changes to that code anymore. So obviously one of the most important ways to keep that, to fulfill that requirement, that principle of ALM, is to export your solution using managed solutions. So the one that actually guarantees that no changes are going to be made to your code. And then obviously when speaking about cloud flows or desktop flows, we are still able to go into the editor and implement changes on different environments apart from dev. This is also very important because, this is also very difficult sometimes for developers to use managed solutions, because they do have a lot of information which is really environment specific. And then once they move this solution from test environment to dev or others, where they want, the other way around, from dev environment to test and others, where they want, for example, to connect to different data sources, or when they want to provide different tokens, credentials, and so on for their systems, then they are somehow troubling how to do that. So for example, we're able to use Dataverse or SharePoint or any other external storage to store their information, which would be environment independent. However, still when the time comes and you'd like to move this information, this solution from one environment to another, you should have even these sources different per environment. And so in Power Platform, we do have some of the functionalities that helps us to actually fulfill these requirements. So to have one solution built in one environment, and then to easily move it as a managed solution to other environments, and then to provide this environment specific information by using things called connection references. So if we do use connections, then we can actually use just a reference in a solution, which will be then mapped to an existing connection in that new environment. Plus, we are given the so-called environment variables, or you can call them the global variables as well. So these are the data types which are holding that information. This is really environment specific. So once you move your solution from dev to test, for example, you are going to be able to set values of these environment variables to those which are specific for that new environment. All right. So without this further introduction, I'd like to jump into the demos, or maybe not the demos, but I'd like to show you the solution that I've built and how I'm using these ALM concepts there. The solution is going to be very simple. So like I have two SharePoint lists which are going to be used for development. So the test is a development one. Now the other one without test is for production. The idea here is that once a new invoice comes into the accountancy department, they can register this as a request for payment for their vendor. And then if that request is approved, then I'd like to trigger a Power Automate desktop. So the desktop flow, RPA, which will sign into the bank account by using credentials provided for this environment, and then perform this transfer on its own, so that actually no accountant is involved. The flow that I'm going to build will be very simple. It will be without the approval. It will be just around these very required steps, so obtaining data to run the desktop flow and then actually run desktop flow. The desktop flow I have already built. It's quite simple as well. So it's first logging into the bank. I'm using this demo for Crédit Agricole bank account. So it's logging into the bank, then it's actually providing information. It's navigating to the payment section, and once it is providing this information around the transfer, so the IBAN number, the recipient, the title, and the amount, and is simply doing the transfer. And finally, once it reaches the last step, so once this transfer is completed, so that's the 9th step, it will display a message just to stop for a moment, and that I will be able to show you that it has actually completed. All right, and also it has some input variables. So it is expecting the Cloudflow, which is triggering this desktop flow, to provide this information, which is amount, IBAN, recipient, and title. This information is going to be obviously taken from the SharePoint list. However, the login and password that is going to be used to sign into bank account, these two information is going to be taken from the Azure Key Vault. Then in Azure Key Vault, I already have 2 pairs of those credentials, of those secrets created. So the bank login and bank password are going to be used on the test dev environments. And the prod, of course, are going to be used in the productive one. Well, obviously you could create 2 different key vaults, which is even maybe more recommended, apart from having one key vault with 4 different secrets. Although in my small short demo, I'm not going to really make this all so isolated. So both the dev/test and production environment are going to use the same the same key vault. All right, and also I already have my solution created, in which I have these do a transfer desktop flow present. So right now I'll start from creating new Cloudflow, which is going to actually trigger this desktop flow that is going to perform the transfer. Right, so the first step is a trigger. I'll use this when an item is created, and let's go into that specific site, so the experiments, and then the list here is going to be the invoices approval test. And the next step, I will obtain the key vault information, so the secrets. Now note that every time you're using this key vault action, it is actually creating a new connection, and also this connection is invalid because actually for some reason this action is not waiting for you to provide the bank name and to really create this connection. So what I will do, I will go into the connections right now, and here I need to update this key vault connection so that I provide the vault name, and then I will be able to re-authenticate it. This authentication window has opened on a different screen, so you can't see it. I do see it, but in a moment you'll notice that this fixed connection is gone. Okay, so and here I would like to use right, so because it has this issue with the connection, let's try to use it again. Okay, that's fine. It will use the login, and let's rename it to login. Then the second step is going to be to obtain another secret, which is going to be called, in this case, the password. One of the very good practices around obtaining information from key vaults is also going into the settings of those actions and then switching these 2 options, so secure inputs and outputs, to on. This way, once you go into the workflow history, you will not see this information taken from the key vault displayed in a plain text. So it is just securing this information from the viewer. Okay, so now once I do have the get login with password, I'm able now to trigger my desktop flow. So I'll now run my desktop flow, the do a transfer one. here it is in attended mode, so you can see it. And what I have to do is to provide all this information now required as input values for that flow. Right, so login is going to be taken from the login action, the password from the password. The recipient is just a title, so it's the vendor name. The IBAN is obviously a specific column. Title is going to be the invoice number, and the amount is going to be obviously the invoice amount. All right, so I'll just save it and navigate for a moment to the solution where I have created this cloud flow to show you one thing. So just in a moment, this cloud flow will appear here, but not alone. It will appear together with the key vault connection reference. So that's one of those features, one of those functionalities that helps us to perform those ALM practices around Power Platform environments. So with the connection environment, with the connection reference, I'm actually able to see what connection this reference is actually using. So you can see I have lots of those key vault references, those key vault connections. And then once I move this solution to another environment as a managed solution, this connection is going to be mapped to one of already existing connections. Or if I won't have any connection on that specific environment, I will be requested to create a new one. So as you can see, this helps us to make the connections actually environment independent. All right, so let's see if this is actually going to work. So now I'll navigate here to invoice approvals test, and I'll create a new item, so the new request for the payment, which should be then, which should then trigger this DESA flow. So Tomasz, I do have the IBAN copied here, so I'll just get it from the clipboard. Let's call it whatever, invoice 2021-43, and let's do the payment for 20,000 something. All right, so now it's saved. I'll then navigate here to desktop, do a transfer trigger, and let's see. Right, so this cloud flow is now running. So on the other hand, I can go into the desktop flow runs, into the monitor, to check if the Power Automate desktop has actually been triggered, and if this is working already. So as you can see, the desktop flow has been started 4 seconds ago. It is running in the attended mode. And then just one small disclaimer, on my machine, for some reasons, maybe it's just not a virtual machine in Azure, and the connectivity is not that fast as with the virtual machines in Azure. Nevertheless, it takes around like 1 minute, even sometimes 2 minutes, to actually trigger those desktop flows in an attended mode. So I'll just make a break here, and I'll be back once this desktop flow is triggered. All right, I think that something is happening because there is this thinking icon next to the cursor. All right, and it has triggered. So let's see how it will go. Yep, it has a login. Now it should provide a password. So far so good. Now the bot is going to navigate into payments, so the new payment. All fine. And now to provide all this information that was present in this SharePoint request form, so-called. So the invoice number as a title, the amount, and now it's going to the confirmation page, and it's done. So right now this dialog window has popped up, so the transfer completed successfully, so I can simply close it and that's done. And so it has completed successfully, so that's fine. All right, so that's the moment where we have our solution built. We have tested it, that it's working. So now we are thinking about moving this to another environments. In my case, I will just move it into a so-called production environment, but let's just assume this is going to be just a different environment. But one thing, I still don't have some of the information provided as independent from environment variables. So my flow is still bound to this list in this site, and my flow is still bound to download these specific secrets from the Key Vault. So now what I have to do? Well, I need to navigate back to my solution and then create the environmental variables. So the environment variables. Now these variables are those kinds of those things in Power Automate, those features, those functionalities that helps you to create information that you'll then be able to define per environment independently. And then you can choose from different types. So you can use a decimal number, you can store this environment variable as a JSON, so as an object. You can store it as a text, as a Boolean, or as a data source. The data source I will talk about in the end. First, I will create two environment variables to store bank account login, which is going to be text, and it will have the bank login value in this environment. And then I'll create another variable that I will call bank account password, and it's also going to be a text, and this time it will bank has value of bank password. And now the last thing, I want to create a data source environment variable that will be used to allow my flow to dynamically query different SharePoint lists per environment. So I'll call experiments. So first, when you're deciding to create a data source connection environment variable, you have to be aware that the only one supported today is SharePoint. So if you'd like to create a data source variable to SQL Server or to Dataverse, whatever, then this is not feasible, and for that you should be actually requested to edit flow in the target environment, or you can use SharePoint as a middle storage, so you can like put their information on a so-called dictionary list and then grab, for example, this connection string to SQL Server from SharePoint. Up to you. All is possible. So now once you select the connector, then you select the connection, and then you have to select the parameter type. First, you need to create a site. So first is the site, and only after you create a site environment variable, you are able to create a list environment variable. So then the next step is I'm going to create the invoice approvals list, and this is also going to be data source. So again, SharePoint, and this time is going to be list. So first you choose the site, and then you can define the list. So again, in this environment, this variable is going to have to be like a lookup to invoice approvals test. And right now I'm able to go back to my to my Cloudflow to do a transfer trigger, and I will be now able to use these variables inside the flow, so it will actually become the environment independent. Right, first we need to get rid of the site address. So instead of the specific fixed one, we need to use this enter custom value. And then the first dynamic content that you will now see in your Power Automate flows, in the cloud flows, is actually going to be a list of all environment variables that are present in that specific environment. So right now I need to use the environment variable that is called the SharePoint experiments. And as well for the list, I need to enter custom value as well. And here I need to input the invoice approvals list. So right now the trigger is already environment independent. The same I have to do here. So I need to switch from the fixed values to enter custom value, and to provide the bank account login, and to provide the bank account password. And that's it. So now I can save my flow. And actually, this is the moment where I'm ready to export it. When you're building your flows and sometimes you're just adding some components into your solution, specifically when speaking about Power Apps and Cloud Flows, be sure that before you do export, you select all those Cloud Flows you have in the solution, all those Power Apps, and that you click here this Add Required Components feature, or this option, so that it will actually download all those required components like missing connections, missing global variables, missing other flows that maybe you're calling as a child flows, and this will put everything into the solution so that once you migrate between the environments, it will not rise any errors that any of those required components are missing. So I click to add the required components. Nothing was actually added, as I can see, but right now, oh no, sorry, SharePoint has been added as a connection reference. Cool. Also, what is very, very important before you do export your solution and then as a managed solution is that you have to go into every environment variable, you have to edit it, and you have to remove its current value. This is very important because if you don't do that, this current value is going to be exported as a part of the managed solution, and it will keep its value in the environment where you will import the solution. So you will not be able to set it. Therefore, you have to hit to remove this from solution. So you need to remove all these current values from all the environment variables before you do export. Keep that in mind, because if you don't, then as said, you will find yourself in a situation that even though you have migrated this solution from dev environment to test environment, it is still using the same values as it was using in the dev environment. So remove these current values from the environment variables. And also, if any of your environment variables has set this default value, as well, remove it, because the default value is going to be used if there is no current value set. So in terms of managed solutions, if and there won't be current value set, it will be used the default value instead. So be sure there is no value, either current or default. And so once that is done, we are ready to export it, obviously as a managed solution. All right, so as it is being exported, I will now go into solutions and switch to another environment. So from the testing environment, I will go into, let's say, testing environment United States. How are we going with the exporting? Well, it's happening. Okay, so it has been exported. and then I am now able to import it in this new environment. So because I removed the connection references and because I believe I have no connections in this environment to Key Vault, I will be required or asked to provide values for these two information, or these two set of information. So for all these environment variables and the data source connection to Key Vault. Right, so in this environment I do have a connection to, whoa, they are very old, to desktop flows, but it seems to be quite an old one, and so on. Well, nevertheless, let's see. Right, so browse and then navigate to downloads and to the managed solution. All right, so there is information about this solution. So now just go next. And as said, right now I'm asked to provide information for these connection references that are being stored in my solution. So there is no connection for SharePoint, so I need to create a new one. There is, okay, let's just do one by one. Right, so this now is added. Then now I need to create a connection to the Key Vault, as said, because there is no connection created already. So I need to go here again. This is bank account data. I was here. Right. So right now I do have all these connections set. For desktop flows, it is already in there. And then I need to provide the bank account login, the bank account password, and these values for those variables that are used as the storages, as the data, as the SharePoint list request forms. So I will use the same site as in the previous example. However, this time I will be not looking up the test list, but the productive one. And as well, I will use the bank login prod and bank account prod. And bank password, sorry, prod. And let me import it just to show you the login, what is its value right now. Let's go into current version and let's preview what is stored in there. It is just user one, well, with a small letters. What I could do is I can provide a new version and I will call this user 2, right? So this is going to be used as the login so that you will see that there is a difference. Fine. How about the solution? Solution has been imported, or at least it's still being imported. The ribbon has to be refreshed and the list of solutions has to be refreshed. Nevertheless, I will now navigate into the experiments, invoices, approvals, the productive one. And I will start creating a new request in here so that you'll see everything is going to work just fine. Let me just check if this has been imported. Okay, so here it is. I will just now switch to, just to show you, to the testing environment United States in my Power Automate desktop. So yep, it has been added 1 minute ago. All right. And so in this solution, because it's just a managed solution, I'm here now not able to do any changes, at least officially, right? So we have to stick to that. So you shouldn't go into do a transfer trigger Cloudflow and edit it. You shouldn't switch your Power Automate desktop to that environment and go into desktop flow, edit mode, do any changes. If there was any power up in here, then you wouldn't be able to edit it. As well with the environmental variables, so you can like open its details. However, you are unable to do any changes to that. All right, so without having said, let's see if this is now going to work. So I will now call my name Jon what? Flow. Jon Flow? Yeah, let's call Jon Flow. The IBAN I will use the same because I don't have a different example, but I will call now, I will now use a different invoice number and a different value. And also remember that I'm using user2 as a login for that flow, for that entry. So now again, I need to wait a moment. I'll just cut it from the recording, so I'll get back once the desktop flow is actually triggered. This time, no funny music and no me doing crazy things. Okay, so it seems that the Power Automate desktop is triggered. Let's see if this will work. Yes, user2. So the value was obtained properly from the key vault, from the different secret. And now let's see if information for the payment is also taken from that SharePoint list, which is now the productive one. Jon Flow, fine. Well, the payee account was different, but invoice prod, fine. The 15,000, fine. So, and the confirmation with the dialog window. So it seems like everything went fine. All right, so with that, it's everything I wanted to show you. I hope that this short tutorial around ALM and environment variables and connection references is going to be really helpful for you, and that you will benefit from using them, and that you will not be scared anymore from using managed solutions and moving your tools, your applications between environments as a managed solution. Because as you just saw, defining information which is environment specific is so easy that anyone can do that, and you shouldn't be really afraid of missing a key functionality or to feel this temptation to do any changes with your flows or desktop flows in the productive environment. Thank you very much for watching, and well, until the next video. And in the meantime, I'd like to ask you to subscribe down below the video, and of course a thumbs up for the video, so that it will be encouraging for me to make more awesome content. Once again, thank you very much for watching.